I saw BGB, GBG, something else. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I just kept looking at these notes that she'd written down, and I went, and then I saw the word orgies. And I went, wait a minute. Boy, girl, boy. Girl, boy, girl. I'm like, oh, the light came on.
But it was an easy escape for me to get out of here, and that's why I picked it. So easy. Quick, fast, done.
You're not afraid of getting sick, baby?
What do you mean?
How do you protect yourself?
We all get tested every 2 weeks.
Are you on birth control?
I'm not on birth control.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Let everybody get settled. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We are here to talk about porn. Yes, which can be a very divisive topic. And the movie that I am a producer on, and Joe and Ron are filmmakers of, and that Rachel is one of the characters in, is about the amateur porn industry, niche of amateur porn. And it is an inside look to, hopefully that's illuminating in some way. And in the spirit of understanding the whole spectrum of porn, we've invited an incredible panel here today. I'm really excited by this because it feels like a first. We're just gonna make it be a first. I would like to just throw it to everybody to introduce themselves because they do a better job than I would. I'm gonna start to my left here with Jill.
I'm Jill Bauer, and I'm one of the directors of the film.
I'm Ronna Gradus. I'm the other director. Jill and I met working at the Miami Herald. We have a journalism background. Our first film is called Sexy Baby, and then that sort of gave birth to this film.
I'm Gail Dines. I'm a professor of sociology and women's studies at Wheelock College. I'm also the founding president of the NGO Culture Reframed. And basically, we define pornography as the public health crisis of the digital age. And I have been fighting against the porn industry for at least 25 years.
Hi, my name is Kourtney Mitchell. I'm a writer and activist. I also sit on the National Board of Directors for an organization called Veterans for Peace. I'm a military veteran, former National Guard infantry, and I'm a peace activist. And I'm here to represent the position of young men who are resisting the porn industry and trying to find a healthy masculinity away from violent pornography.
Mark, take it away.
Hi, my name is Mark Kearns. I have been working in the porn industry for 32 years now. I started out as a reviewer for the magazine Adult Video News, which I continue to work for. Our website is avn.com. I write on pretty much every topic connected with porn. My expertise is in legal matters, but I also go to the sets and write about what happens there, interview people, etc.
Like Mark, I'm also a lawyer. My name is Nadine Strossen. I'm a law professor at New York Law School, not far from here, where I specialize in constitutional law. For 18 years, I was the national president of the American Civil Liberties Union, defending free speech, freedom of choice, reproductive freedom, all fundamental freedoms for everyone. And I actually wrote a book relevant to today's topic called Defending Pornography, Free Speech, Sex, and the Fight for Women's Rights. I believe that censoring pornography will do more harm than good, specifically to women's safety, women's dignity, and women's rights. And I thought this film was a very fair treatment of the issue.
That's a hard follow-up. I'm Rachel. I have the least, notable past before this, but I was in porn for probably 6 to 8 months of my life. And in this setting now, I view it as something that built me up, but also brought me down. So I'm here to just tell you my side of the story because I think I have a good one.
And she's one of the main characters in the film.
Well, thank you and welcome all. All right, let's get started. There's a lot to say. Porn. So we have kind of two things. We have the consumers and we have the performers. We have the people, the participants. Let's start with the consumers. Anybody can jump in at any time. What does the average porn consumer not know?
I would say the average porn consumer doesn't understand what goes into it's like, don't look at the sausage because you'll never eat it. The average porn consumer does not understand that porn in its production is violence against women, that the women last for about 3 months and are often then thrown out because their bodies simply cannot tolerate the violence. What they don't know is that most women are in there because they've got few choices and would rather be anywhere else but on that porn set. And that pornography is really prostitution with the camera going, and we need to think of it as a form of sexual exploitation.
Well, I think many people hearing that, Gail, and who've read your books would be shocked by the film's characters, real people like Rachel, speaking about how empowering they find it, how liberating, how exciting, how thrilling, and yes, there are downsides. There are downsides to every job, including mine, as a law professor, but I was really positively impressed by, among other things, the young women saying how respected they felt and protected, more so even than in the real world.
Yeah, every job does have points to where it's maybe uncomfortable, but when you go to a job, you're not technically showing every single part of your body, or someone isn't technically using every single thing that you have and then tossing it away like it was never ever anything important. So if I went to work and I hated my boss, I could be like, I hate my boss, and walk home and whatever. But in the fact that I am out there, I'm completely open, every part of my body, soul, mind is having to be in that position, it's a little bit more than uncomfortable.
And I think it's interesting that you said about you saw it as empowerment, and when we speak to women in the industry, they sound like that when they come out and have some perspective from what happened, and they can begin to understand it's not work, you're in a level of vulnerability, you are young, you've got all these older predators around you which know exactly how to push your buttons in order to do that. So I think it's interesting telling that story.
Well, then, can we be a little bit more specific? Is it possible that both experiences are possible?
Absolutely, and I thought that's one of the reasons I thought the film was really fair, because it showed a range of perspectives. It showed different individuals, including Rachel, going through an evolution in their attitudes, and but it clearly from the beginning was a voluntary choice. A voluntary choice to get in, a voluntary choice to stay in, a voluntary choice to leave.
I want to talk. Oh, sorry, Mark. Please go ahead.
I kind of have to disagree with that analysis. First of all, I think it's important to recognize that the film covers one very small section of the porn industry. I think something like 5 actresses were used. One agent who, from my understanding, talking to other people, is not even a licensed agent. In LA...
What is a licensed agent?
Well, in California, if you
pimp.
want to be... Yes, heard that from you before. In California, agents who represent actresses, which are what people who act in porn movies are, they are actresses, are required to be licensed by the state, and there are certain requirements that they have to fulfill and certain duties towards their clients.
But not in Florida? Does that not?
I truly don't know whether Florida licenses agents or not. It's not, I think, a big area of adult production. They shoot some amount of internet porn there. They rarely shoot movies that show up on DVD in Florida.
Okay, sorry. So anyway, you were saying, so you feel like it's just a small section of the industry.
Yeah, that's correct. And also, the film tends to concentrate on quote-unquote violence. Most of the material that's made by the adult industry is far from violent. It's consensual. The people who are doing it know exactly what they're doing. They are acting, however, and sometimes if you see something in an adult movie that appears to be violent, it is something that has been worked out beforehand. It is something that all the performers are aware of what they're getting into, and it's essentially actresses in adult movies not only act roles, but they also function essentially as stunt people.
Okay, I want to talk about
sorry.
that.
Just to jump in as the filmmakers, we do specify that we're talking about one area of the industry, so hopefully that is clear that that is what we're looking at, not all of pornography. And the reason that we sort of went down a dark path was not that we set out to say, let's talk about the violence, let's go looking for it. It would crop up, like, right in our faces.
And let me say that the studies show that when you look at peer-reviewed studies, what you find is that in the top rented watch movies, 90% of scenes have violence against women in them, and these are academic peer-reviewed studies. So what you're saying is completely not borne out by the research, but by the porn industry.
The film itself stressed Mark's point that this was acted, it was fantasy, it was not.
so
Let's
actual
talk about
violence.
consent.
Yeah,
I want to talk about consent and choice.
Yeah,
Jill.
I just want to kind of weigh in. I think Ronna started to anecdotally on the ground with the girls that we spent time with. When you talk about consent is such a, there's such a continuum of consent, of what consent is. When the girls come in the house, you can see the story arc, the film they're very, very excited. They have freedom for the first time, money, they're making money. And in terms of, what Gail was talking about, the sort of more violent porn, a lot of the girls, quite honestly, and Rachel can speak to this, don't actually know what they're getting into. I would say pretty much every girl we interviewed who did professional amateur porn ended up in a situation that she did not know about beforehand.
Which is
One of the things I want to talk about is when we're talking about maybe there's some, the film only covers one part of the porn industry. It doesn't matter. What is it that young men are actually watching? I think that's the question that we need to ask. And the question was, what do porn consumers not know? What do people not know about the porn industry? Well, something that they don't know is that young boys start watching pornography at the age of 10 and 11 years old. So it doesn't matter whether or not what they're seeing is violent or not. If it's violent, then we already know that's bad for a 10 and 11-year-old boy to watch. If it's not violent, what we're seeing is that they're getting their sexual template from an industry that preys on young boys, that draws them in with images and pictures and media where they do not have the psychological maturity to understand what they're watching. I started watching porn at 11 years old. So, from my perspective, then I went on to join the National Guard as an infantry soldier. So what happens to young boys along this development? When they see this media, and the levels of violence are astonishing in pornography these days. So when young boys see this kind of media, what kind of message are they getting that tells them how to be a man and how to be masculine in this society?
What kind of message should they get for more movies and movies about the military?
Absolutely. Well, it makes sense because the porn that they're watching definitely resembles the war movies. Well, that's for certain.
I pose that question to you guys because women, as protectors of porn, and porn is part of freedom of speech, when we start talking about porn that gets into the areas of violence and racial slurs, obviously free speech is gigantic and has to cover everything in order to protect people. But at what point do you draw the line? At what point do you say there is somebody who needs protected, whether it's the victim?
If somebody is actually harmed or exploited in the production process, including through lying or harassment or coercion, it doesn't even have to be physical violence, that is already illegal under criminal and civil laws. This is why the concept of meaningful consent is so important, and everybody would advocate education and information and protection for those who are working in the industry. But when you're talking about the alleged harm to people who are watching something in terms of having a bad impact on your mind, fortunately, the Supreme Court has consistently said In a free society, we as individuals are autonomous. I'm sure Gail has watched more pornography than I have by far. I don't think it's had an adverse impact on her ideas, maybe, but not on her.
But the Supreme
not on her
Court are not
conduct.
social. The Supreme Court are not social scientists, okay? And when you want to look at harm, you don't go to the Supreme Court. You go to the literature, and what you do is you look at the 40 years of empirical studies by sociologists, by psychologists, by media experts, and the jury is absolutely backing. There is no discussion anymore in the academic world. Pornography shapes the way men think about women. It changes the way they think about rape. It changes the way they think about their own masculinity. It encourages violence against women. It causes erectile dysfunction. It causes a whole array of things. And we all know that. The porn industry, by the way, they're liars. That's their job. They're an industry. They're a predatory industry. Their job is to give you their PR. When you go to the actual peer-reviewed journals, without question, we know that what Kourtney was saying and the harm it does to boys as they're developing their sexual identity and their sexual template has been known for over 40 years. And that was before the violence of the online porn. That was with Playboy, Penthouse, and Hustler. Can you imagine now what it's doing when most porn is violent, when you go into YouPorn or YouTube?
Every single statement
totally
is
wrong.
completely disputed by
that is
respected
totally wrong.
social scientists.
There are many academic studies that find porn to be essentially harmless, to be an activity that couples often engage in to, for instance, to learn new positions to do, to stimulate themselves. You know, maybe the marriage is doesn't have the same spark it once did. They watch porn together. They sometimes imitate what they see on screen. There is a problem, I will admit, when young people watch porn, of the 12, 13, 14-year-old variety. They should not be able to get access to it. Sadly, there's a lot of pirated material out there which they can easily see.
I don't think they even have to look that far.
Yeah, then why don't you stop access for under 18s? Why then are you fighting that?
The point being is that we live in a culture where sex is so repressed, discussion of sex is so repressed, that these 12, 13, 14-year-old kids cannot go to their parents and say, explain to me what I just saw, okay? Why is this here? Why are these people doing that? What's going on? Because 12, 13-year-olds, they're already into puberty, okay? Kids that young are having babies.
I think we can agree upon that there's a gap. I think we can all agree upon that there's an educational gap.
But the porn industry is actually targeting these boys. I mean,
Oh,
what
that's not
he's
true.
going to say is all from
That's
the
not
porn
true.
industry. Let me tell you what we do know. The porn industry is targeting those boys because the earlier they get them, the more likely they are to become habitual users. So all of what you're saying is PR for the industry, which is your job as a porn person. I get that. But my job as an academic is to point out what the research says. And you want
And
I
she
think
writes books
what I think is
against
not
porn.
being talked about here is what kind of pornography are young men actually watching? Do you think young men are actually watching porn that is, all consensual and it's loving and look, he's
I think-
stroking her? That is not the kind of pornography that young boys
they're
are watching.
watching-
As a matter of fact, because I'm 29 years old, way back when I was 11, I was watching violent pornography. So what I'm telling you is that the industry is targeting young boys. This is the porn that young men are actually
I think
watching.
this is the subject of a different film, and I wish we would talk about your film, which is about protecting the females and males, for that matter, who are in the industry. And I thought who are making a voluntary choice, how can we make it more informed, more voluntary, make sure they have real other options aside from the dead-end, low-wage jobs. Let's increase the minimum wage around the country. Let's increase educational opportunities so that this isn't seen as the only option for so many young women. That to me was the tragedy.
Yeah, I was also going to say that what led us into this film was the fact that we were frequenting a lot of porn sites in order to make our first film, and we had a lot of questions, and one of the big ones was like, what is this sort of hateful, mean-spirited streak that we are seeing on like the most basic mainstream Pornhub?
Well, and to further that, when we did not know about the abuse sites until we started making this film, and that's the point at which, I mean, really, everything else we've talked about we've been debating that, but the abuse sites, we do wonder like how that's legal.
And the pop-up ads are like right there, little gifts.
If somebody is
playing.
actually being harmed, it is not legal, and there are plenty of laws
Then you're going to have to
that
close
can
the
be
entire
used.
industry
And to
down
me,
if
one
that's
of
the case, because
now,
women are being harmed throughout
if
the
you
making of
try
most
to
of the
just,
industry.
that's what I was going to say. That would cause more than harm than good. If you really want to protect these people, you need regulation, not prohibition.
Okay, so
Prohibition
let's-
just drives
let's
it
talk about
underground,
regulation
where they
and-
have no protection
and
at all.
meaningful consent. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. There's, I'm sorry.
No, I was actually going to say, yeah, Rachel, like from a personal perspective.
Yeah. So talk about what does it mean to have consent? How much freedom did you feel like you actually had to walk away if you weren't
yeah.
comfortable?
Obviously, I had all the freedom in the world to walk away, but I'm kind of going way back, like to how he mentioned that the agent wasn't licensed and bonded, but licensed and bonded means absolutely nothing in porn, because the licensed and bonded most well-known agent was the worst agent I've ever come in contact with, like the most harmful and like unprofessional agent. And just because he was licensed and bonded doesn't mean anything for how he treats a girl. Like, he's the one that's putting them into escorting, and he's the one that's putting them into bachelor parties, where really you're just showing up and having sex with all these guys at a bachelor party. So whether they're licensed or bonded or not licensed or bonded doesn't change how they act. It almost makes them worse, because they think they have more power than the girl walking in there trying to do something, and she has no ill intentions, but he has all of the ones all under the rug. He doesn't say it in the beginning, but they trick you to just sign that paper, 3 years, you can work for me. It's not how you think it is, just because he's licensed and bonded.
So if you felt like you wanted to get out of that contract,
I have been trying to get out of that contract for just about a year now, and he has given me absolute hell. And all I want is my name off of his website. He has my picture posted still, and I'm not even in the porn industry.
So here you have-
I just want to clarify that is not the agent in the movie.
No, it's not.
So what we
Completely
could do
different.
now is you could name him, and everyone can email him and start telling him to get her picture off
don't
because
want it
she
on
doesn't
there
want
anymore.
No, so why
I'm
don't we
not
help
in
you?
porn.
You've got a great audience here. Everyone should start tell the name if you'd like people to email him and get it off, so we can start a boycott of him.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not fair, and he's from LA Direct. It doesn't matter who you contact in LA Direct, because they were all contacting me, still asking me, like, they're trying to cover their grounds on my contract by offering me work, so that means that I'm still obligated to be in the contract, and if I want it off, then I have to pay him $3,000 to take my picture off of a website.
So Nadine, you're a lawyer. Work for her pro bono,
that might
Nadine,
be
and get
the-
it off. She doesn't want
I
it on the
think that's a
website.
really good
so why doesn't
case.
Nadine take
And
the
I think
case
it's-
and get this off
I
the
think
site?
it's a really
That-
good case,
fair.
and I
That
think
might-
typical? Is this
that-
typical of the
It
industry?
absolutely is not, and that might be the reason that they threw this particular agent out of the licensed adult talent agency organization.
So then how is
He's
he still
gone.
working?
Huh?
How is he still
Oh, he's working as a freelancer. He was at one point one of the biggest agents in the business.
So I'm
but
not
there are
under
a
a
lot
contract anymore.
So come
and-
on, you
and
lawyers,
you're-
let's go
and you're-
after him and get your
and
picture off the
and a
website.
lot of people have left his agency for the exact reasons that you have said.
Because he sucks.
But
He was still licensed and bonded, though, so he's still a bad person, and he was licensed and bonded. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if my agent from Miami wasn't licensed and bonded. He treated people better than that guy did.
Sadly,
well-
the situation that Rachel is describing exists not only in this particular business, but in many businesses where workers are exploited.
Okay, well, let's
and
talk.
not
I just
let's
want to
talk
talk
about
more
one
about
business.
exploitation
And so,
in
you
this
know,
particular
and
business,
what we
because
really
that's what we're
need,
here for.
The solution is not only individual contracts that are fairly negotiated and respected, but also collective bargaining agreements where the power
porn
of
industry
the
is not
group.
going into collective. I mean, what kind of a world do you live in,
What
Nadine?
kind of world
These
do
are
you
young
live in
women.
where
It's a
you
world
think?
you're
I know. I
ignorant
live
of.
in the world that Rachel's talking about, and exactly what happened to you. I meet women after women who went into this industry, thought they were going through consent. They're young. You don't know. You're up against basically predators who use you and know how to manipulate you. This idea that you are actually consenting is a ludicrous universe that you have with a law
Gail,
degree as an
I
older
think
woman.
that is such an insult to say that 100%.
I didn't say 100%. I didn't say 100%.
So
I
you're
say the majority.
generalizing.
No,
You're
I'm not.
generalizing
Rachel,
that
would you
women
like to
are
talk about-
incapable of consenting to make their living this way.
Rachel, what
I
did
have
you
met
find?
many, and I'm sure in the film depicts some, although I do think it's, by definition, focusing on young people
Can we talk about age?
less able
Do we
to
feel like
consent.
age is the overarching commonality that makes it possible to exploit a young girl? The younger the girl, the easier it is to get her consent in not a meaningful
That
way.
is a factor, but
let's-
I would also say
let's get something
lack of
straight.
education.
So men, it's okay when they're 18 to go over and get themselves killed in Afghanistan. They're mature enough to do that, but women are not mature enough to make a decision
No,
that
no
they
one
would like
here
to
would
have
support
sex on
that.
camera.
I don't. That's not
Rachel.
the issue we're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely not the issue that we're talking about. That's fighting
We're
for our
talking about
country,
consent.
but this is porn.
Why
so
don't you let her talk?
so
Talk
Porn
about
is a
consent.
business.
Were there times
yes,
when you walked
I-
into a job
okay,
and you didn't feel
yeah.
comfortable staying, but you didn't feel comfortable leaving?
Absolutely, because when you walk in, I mean, your agent might have told you what you might be doing, or, they were general about it because the director was general about it because they want you to be general about it, and they don't want you to have an opinion whether you like it or not. So you walk in there, they tell you, yeah, we're going to be doing this, blah, 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 and then you start the scene, and then, this actually is a true story. Yeah, totally normal scene, casting couch, whatever, the whole thing. But now you have to get on your knees and say this, and it's something extremely degrading, as in, literally, quote, I am a worthless slut, and I'm only here to make men come. That's it. And I was like, I can't say that. And he's like, well, it's part of the script, it's right here, so you have to. And I was like, what do you mean I have to? I can't say that. I can't. Could anyone else?
And you don't literally
how?
have to. If you
No.
know nothing else
Yes.
about the Constitution,
But
there's
then
something
from
called
the law
the 13th
professor who's got
Amendment,
tenure.
which
This is different. A
completely
young woman.
outlaws
Hold on.
indentured
Vic, yeah,
servitude.
let's
You're
just let her
free to
finish her
leave
story.
any job.
Let her
Oh,
finish her story.
it's
Let me
far
finish.
beyond that.
Let me finish.
Let her finish. Let Rachel finish.
She just finished her story, please.
Rachel.
I
We
guess
don't
not.
want to hear from you. We want to hear from Rachel. Please go on.
So, this is me being 18 years old. 4 months out of being 17. So, that's young. That's really young. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And when you have, that staring at you, a camera like that, a guy like this, and maybe some random girl, then you feel uncomfortable. You feel strange. You feel out of your body, and you don't know if you can say yes, no, maybe. And when a whole entire set is relying on you, people's money is relying on you, you find it hard in yourself to just walk away and then have all these people mad and just corrupt the whole thing. So it's not that easy to just be like, no, turn your head and walk away. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. So they used that to make me
And
be what they wanted me
If
to
you
be.
had
every
seen this
good
movie
agent-
before you went into the
Here
industry,
the two pro
would you
corners
have
jump
not?
in
Would you have
to
not?
completely disavow
I
the
think that's
reality
the
of the
I
young
think
woman
that's
in
an important
pornography.
service
And every
that
good
the movie
agent-
is doing, right?
Every good agent that I know will tell their performer, if something happens on the set that you're not comfortable with, you tell me.
Yeah,
okay?
every good agent that
And
you know.
they will,
How many
they
good
will
agents
have
do you
no
know?
problem with the girl
So, Rachel,
leaving
you
the
met
set.
all these good agents,
No
did you?
problem.
And of course they don't
Because it's
exist.
a business.
Let's talk about the analogy that you used earlier, because you see, I'm a military veteran. No, I didn't deploy, but I have the stories of veterans who did deploy. I'm on the National Board of Directors for Veterans for Peace. So let's talk about this analogy that you used about young men choosing to go overseas and die. You know what happens in boot camp? The drill sergeants are using the same phrases, they're using the same degrading terms to train soldiers, to turn boys into soldiers so they can become machines and go overseas and kill for their nation. They're using the exact same terms. Now, if I was given permission to use some of those
They're
terms,
not
you all would
using
be
those
absolutely
terms in
appalled.
porn.
No, let's talk about the influence
They're
that the
having
porn industry
actresses
has on young
say
men.
dialogue.
They're watching the violent porn
It's
at the
called
age of
acting.
11, 12, and 13 years old, and then they decide that a militarized culture is exactly how to be a man in this society because the porn told them that. And then they join the U.S. Army, they join the Marines, and they have the exact same experience. They get in, they're degraded. As a matter of fact, the training document for the U.S. Army, TRIDOC, the training document, splits boot camp into 3 phases. The first phase is called red phase. It's called total control. So guess what? The drill sergeant has total control over the soldier. And guess what? When they're using the porn terms against you as a soldier, you understand exactly what you're supposed to be doing in that moment. So let's talk about what happens when boys make choices to go overseas and kill. They're learning it from the porn. And they're trained from a young age to respond to that kind of verbal abuse. And then when they come out, they're completely ready to wage war. And that's exactly what pornography is.
And when the drill sergeants or whatever they are use these terms to the men, are they free to walk away and say, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore?
You know what happens?
Guess what?
You know what
Porn
happens
actors
when the young
are.
boys? You know what happens when the young boys when they decide that they don't want to endure the verbal and physical abuse of training? They just continue to call the same terms that they use in pornography, and then they have to go into the CEO's office and endure the same abuse behind a closed door.
I
Because
don't
they
think
can't leave.
women should let the men dominate the discussion. And I'd like to bring it back to the film again, because I'm all in favor of education and information. And to me, that is one of the very valuable things about the film, to help 17-year-olds on the cusp of 18, such as Rachel. If this could be seen, I asked her if you had seen that before you went, would you have made a different choice?
Yeah, like this is the whole point of the film, is to help people make different choices before they're already post-choice, because it can do things to you that you can't reverse. Like, you can have all your knowledge and, whatever factual relations that you want to put around porn, but until you're sitting in that spot, and until you have someone talking to you how they talk to you, until you're feeling how it makes you feel and how you have no other option at the time, then you'll really know what it does. Because like he was saying, if he turns around and walks away from the military, then he has to think of a whole new way to live. Where do I go? Should I go to college? Should I do something else? What do I do? Okay, if I say, turn around, say, fuck the porn industry, and go back, what am I supposed to do? I had no idea who I was or where I was going when I was 18 years old, so I was sitting there taking it because I had no other option. I didn't know where to go, so I would sit there, and whatever they would tell me to do, I would do it because I needed the money. I couldn't pay for school on my own. I couldn't pay for anything on my own. My parents couldn't pay for my school on my own. I had to take it into my own hands, so I decided that my emotion or whatever, I can just put it aside because it shouldn't matter right now, but my future matters more to me than how I felt at the present moment.
So you did a job that you didn't particularly like for money, you got the money, and then you stopped doing the job.
Can I just jump in? I just want to jump in and say that everything that Rachel was explaining, so, we were exploring this professional amateur porn world and saying I didn't know what else to do, I didn't have opportunities. A lot of the clips actually are called that. Good girls with no options. She needs the money. How could I say no?
Virgin manipulations.
So, the thing is, it is, we found, sort of a blurred line between reality and fantasy.
Can I ask what it is about men? Let's turn the focus now to the users, right? Because many of the women in porn do not have choice. The guys have choices of whether to watch porn or not. What is it about masculinity in our culture that when you see things like she has no choice, I can't really say what they say about the women on the porn, why do they actually get off on that level of violence? What happens in the porn is the more degraded and the more debased, and you probably had this experience, the hotter the sizzle of porn. So what I would like to know is, let's take the focus off why women get into porn. That's not rocket science. You needed the money. And let's ask what is wrong with men in our culture that they have made this a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry, and that they support an industry that exploits women, chews them out, spits them out, and nobody asks, why are you doing this? Why are you encoding this violence into your sexuality? What kind of men are you going to be? What kind of fathers are you going to be? What kind of teachers are you going to be? What kind of partners are you going to be? These are massive cultural questions that need to get asked about bringing up a generation of boys on hardcore pornography.
And their opposite answers to every single point is as insulting to men as it is to women. Women watch pornography. Women make pornography. Women voluntarily choose to make, much older women with choices voluntarily choose to make their living in the industry. Many studies have shown that the typical man prefers and is more stimulated by images of women who are joyfully, enthusiastically, voluntarily participating in sex, and that violence in sex is a turnoff. So as with everything in social science, there's a lot of dispute, and I'm not asking you to take the studies that I'm citing as gospel, but please don't take the ones that Gail is citing as gospel either.
I'm talking about the meta-studies now.
And I am as well, Gail,
Can I
as
just
you
finish?
well
Let me
know.
finish. I'm not talking about one or two studies. Look, I can find you studies now that says there's no such thing as global
can
warming.
find studies
That's junk
that say
science.
anything.
But let me talk about the weight of the evidence. In social science, you don't cherry pick a study here or there that basically supports what you say. You go with what the weight of the evidence is. And I don't know what studies you're looking at, but I have basically just written a book on the weight of the evidence, and I am telling you what men want of violent, debasing, dehumanizing pornography. If they didn't, then Rachel would not have this story to tell. Were you asked to kiss somebody and say, I love you, as you're making porn, and to show you're really enjoying it? What were you asked to do, Rachel?
We can't,
I ask you, Rachel, not you.
You can't characterize a huge industry by
I'm
one
asking Rachel,
person.
not you, Rachel.
I could bring
I'm not asking
500
you either. I'm
actresses
asking
in here
Rachel.
who would tell you that she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about.
Half of
It's
them
that
would
simple.
be lying. So either way.
I just want to bring this back to the movie for a second. I want to talk about consent because I feel like this is a huge part of this. So verbal abuse, sure, you could say it's dialogue, you can say it's words. But then we talk about physical abuse. And I want to ask you, and be as honest as you want to be, when it comes to physical abuse and you're filming, how real does it have to be, or how real do they allow it to be, regardless of whether or not you said yes at the beginning to the act? Did you ever feel pain that you didn't expect to feel?
I mean, yeah, definitely when it comes down to like what porn you're filming, it'll depend on what they do to you. But when it comes to the amateur world, it's amateur. So you go in there and it's not so set up like a lot of the sets in LA might be, where it's complete, there's people everywhere, there's all this stuff. You can walk in and it's one dude, one camera, and that automatically makes me feel uncomfortable, because then it's just like almost like a personal thing. Like, why is it just you? Like, shouldn't this be more than this? And that's where it can turn into like the prostitution thing as well, because they can make it seem like you're shooting porn, but you're actually not even shooting porn. They can do whatever they want with that video.
He hasn't even turned on the camera.
Right. And I've been in that situation just about twice now.
Turn on the camera.
No, actually no. I know a director, huge director, one of the biggest porn sites in America. And he uses his little protege who he's trying to build up, and he tells the protege, hey, go tell the girl that we're filming a new site and tell her to come up to my apartment. And this happened to me. I was like getting off the plane, had no makeup on, no anything. I was like, shouldn't I like be ready? Shouldn't someone do my makeup if it's a scene? He's like, no, it's a new site. I go up there. He's like, you want a drink? I'm like, I'm 18 years old. Don't even drink. I'm good. And then he's like, all right. I was like, okay, so what's the scene about? He's like, oh, just normal. It's just us, whatever. And then he's like, go stand there and walk over here. And then there was weirdness. It was like 10 minutes of like sex, and then it was over. And it was just not a porn scene. It was for his personal enjoyment. And I didn't even know that. They lied to me. They tricked me. That was escorting. That wasn't what I signed up for.
And that is why porn stars have agents, to prevent that sort of thing.
But Mark, you have to acknowledge, even if this is not typical of the business at large or the majority, there are definitely girls who are subject to this sort of treatment. So what is your proposal, as somebody who's an advocate who works within the industry, what's your proposal to protect girls besides just agents in LA? Like, do you believe in regulation?
He's a facilitator. He's not an advocate. You're a facilitator of this kind of pornography. That's what you do. You defend it. So let's call it what it is. You're not an advocate for these women. If you were an advocate for these women, you would be listening to her and not interrupting her the entire time she's trying to talk.
People have
You are
been
not an advocate.
exaggerating, all the bad things about porn.
Because you're such a bunch of nice guys,
Gail claims
That's
that
what you are.
90% of porn has
I don't
violence.
claim it. I don't
This
claim
is
it. It's
crap,
in a study in the
okay?
journal Violence
When they
Against
say
Women by Anna
violence,
Bridges.
when they say violence, if two people are having sex and one slaps the other on the ass because they're excited that they're turned on, for her that's violence.
You're either lying or you're out of touch with the kind of pornography that young men are watching right now. You're lying. You're lying. You know exactly what.
I think what's really helpful is to look at analogies, because I think we have a whole culture that always treats sex and everything related to sex as unique and uniquely harmful. Yeah. Suppose we have, and this is not hypothetical, rampant, not only harassment, but rape in the military. This is not hypothetical, right? This has been a major issue for one of the New York senators, Kirsten Gillibrand, and legislation being proposed around the country. We don't say, well, the solution to rape and abuse and exploitation of women in the military is to end the military, do we? No. We say we're going to have regulation. We're going to have lawsuits. We're going to have training. We're going to have enforcement.
Well,
we're going to have
pornography
protection.
is paid
And we
rape,
have
as is
to
prostitution. It is actually paid rape.
The definition of
It's
rape
not.
is
Lie.
non-consensual.
Yes, and
we do
argument-
everything we
That is
can
not
true.
to make
Basically-
sure
Time out.
there is
Question.
genuine
Basically-
consent.
Gail,
We can agree on that, Gail.
I appreciate what you're doing, but don't we have to acknowledge that porn is here to stay? I mean, it's not really going anywhere.
Don't. We didn't have to acknowledge that slavery was here to stay. We don't have to
just
acknowledge
because
that
it's been here since
rampant
cave
violence.
paintings,
We do not
there's
have to
no reason
acknowledge
it
that.
should stay.
We can argue that an industry that is built on the exploitation of women should not be here to stay. It is an illegitimate industry.
exploited. They're
It is
paid
bankrupt to
actresses.
its core, and
Inherently
I don't think it should be
exploitative.
here to
Historically,
stay.
how it's been for at least the last 10 years isn't the best solution for now to try to create some regulation?
I don't. First of all, the porn industry fights every single bit of regulation. Measure B in LA, which was trying to get condoms, which was to protect the workers, they have fought tooth and nail against it.
Because we have an
MindGeek,
excellent
let me finish.
testing program.
MindGeek, which is the biggest single distributor of pornography, was sending money from Luxembourg to LA to fight Measure B. So they fight it tooth and nail. You cannot regulate this industry. It is a predatory industry. It is bankrupt to its core, and it should be gotten rid of and wiped off the face of this earth.
Yeah,
Cannot.
there's
Yeah,
no
that's crap.
regulation. The regulation with the whole testing thing is like wrong because, okay, every 14 days you get tested if you're shooting, right? Okay, I show up to a shoot. I've been tested. That was my 14 days. Here's my list of things that I don't have. This guy, he might have been tested 3 days ago, so his 14-day test is good. But wait, he just went out to the club last night and had sex with 4 dirty girls. So couldn't that mean that I have something now too? Okay, and also, what do the tests not test for? HPV? What? Isn't that very serious? It can cause cervical cancer in women. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Herpes, not tested for, because apparently everyone has it. That's what I was told, that it's the same as a cold sore on your lip. Genital herpes is not the same as a cold sore on your lip. So you
And
can...
it's also something that condoms don't protect you from.
Of course, the condoms protect you from a whole range of diseases. They can't protect you from 100%, but it's way better. Did you ever? Did they use condoms?
Isn't
in the
there a
film?
law that you had to use condoms
Now
in
there is.
California?
Yes,
okay.
now
Yeah,
for
I
Measure
never
B.
saw one condom on any set. And I'm pretty sure you're supposed to have a permit to shoot your porn, and no one ever had a permit. So that's why everyone's going to Vegas now, so they can do freely what they want and use whatever the fuck they want. Like, it doesn't even matter.
But, you know, Gail, no industry consents to regulation. They always have to be fought against by those of us in the public who care
That
about safety and health and true freedom
Right.
and ending exploitation in every business, including this one.
can't harm Richard.
I'm sorry, I just want to open it up to the audience because this is a very lively discussion. I'm sure some people have some questions or comments or things to say. Right here. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you all for being here. First, I just wanted to acknowledge, I feel like a lot of what you're talking about is men who watch porn, and a lot of women watch porn too, and a lot of women enjoy porn. So I wanted to know what you make of the more feminist porn movement that's happening right now. I used to work for Cosmopolitan, and I know
Cosmopolitan to feminist porn.
Cosmopolitan is a feminist magazine.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. But let me say what we do know about the statistics of women who look at porn. They don't tend to look at the same thing that men look at. The porn that women are looking at is very different. The porn that men look at is the gonzo.
Isn't it important to make that distinction that not all porn is bad porn?
But it's a tiny... Yes. But if you look at the economics of the porn industry, it's not even a bleep in the economic map. What's really important is not the farm stand that sells organic tomatoes at the end of your yard. It's the Walmarts of the world that basically... Those are the things that you have to look at in terms of the culture. So if your average guy is looking at violent porn, that's what we need to be talking about, because that's what's shaping the culture.
The average guy is not looking at violent
You know
porn.
full well they are. This is such a joke.
I'd like to say I acknowledge...
You know, she's pulling these statistics
We
out of her
acknowledge
butt.
what you're saying, and I do believe that that women making porn for women is great. It's great, and we need more of it. And it's true. The needle never moves unless there's an economy or there's money to be made. And if women decide and can be bold about what they want, I'm sure the kind of porn will change. I'm sure.
And I notice nobody here is talking about A, gay male porn, B, lesbian porn. There's a lot of that out there. Men and women enjoy it. And, you know, and especially with gay male porn, I guarantee you there's no women being exploited, and the guys know exactly what they're getting into. And I also want to throw out the fact that in the last 11 years, there has not been one single HIV transmission on a porn set.
Oh, yeah, that's why they've closed it down 5 times in the last 2 years.
And the statistics that you hear from the public health agencies are statistics not only gathered from people who test porn stars, they also test sex workers in the same city.
There's been
So the
Mark,
statistics are combined, and it seems like it's higher, but guess what? You have less chance of getting an STD on a porn set than you do picking up somebody at a bar.
This is a joke. This is like laughable.
Jill, do you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to clarify that we filmed a very specific
You did.
niche.
You did.
Okay.
And nobody's saying it's representative of the entire industry.
And
the title cards tend to give that implication.
They're just statistics.
Rashida, can I give you a study that was published, an academic study, when they actually compared...
Yes, please.
Okay. So you talked about women making porn. So what they did is they took films made by women directors and they compared them for the levels of violence in them compared to male directors. And what they found is there was a slightly statistically higher case of violence against women in films directed by women. And that violence was directed against women. So let me tell you, when you put women behind a camera in the porn industry, they do what the men do. In fact, they become more manly than the man because they have to prove themselves. You're not going to have any egalitarian images of sexuality coming out of the porn industry. That's like asking for cordon bleu food from McDonald's. Can I please have steak or poivroir as you go into a McDonald's?
I want to throw an anecdote in. Rachel actually shot a scene that didn't get, that never, I don't think it made it onto the internet, the scene that you shot in Miami of Jade.
The one that I shot?
Yeah.
Oh, it did make it on the internet.
Oh, it did?
Actually,
Okay.
yeah. I did direct one, and I was filming it, and it actually helped me in this sense because I have been sitting there. So I was doing everything in favor of the girl because I cared about her, because I've been her. So, like, if she ever felt uncomfortable, I'd be like, hey, like, come here, like, let's talk. Like, what's wrong, Like, can I do something? Can I help you? And then she'd be like, no, I'm cool. I'm like, all right. And then, like, if the dude is like, okay, this was the situation, like, he couldn't, like, get it up. So I was like, he was like, yeah, you need to help me. I was like, actually, that's your job. You need to help yourself. Like, she's working for me. So get on. That's you. So I was definitely in favor of the woman. And if you go into the categories, like where there's a million porn categories, there are female-friendly ones. And it says female-friendly. And those are the passion sites. So those are the ones that are like very nice. And you think they're in love. They're in wedding outfits. Like they just got married and all this stuff. So a lot of the time, I don't know really who's directing those. They might not even be women. But the whole womanly thing is nurturing. It's like more. It's
this
just
is not what the men are watching.
Softer.
Can I ask a question? Like, could there be such a thing as a fair trade porn movement?
In fact, I believe there is one in the UK. I don't recall the name of it right now, but I have seen press releases from them. There's also the Feminist Porn Awards in Canada that they hold every year, where they pick the films that they believe are best representative of women being essentially empowered by porn.
Okay, I'm going to take another question from the audience. Yes, hi.
Oh, you know what to do. Don't ask me. Go home, put in porn into Google. You'll come up with about 9 of the top porn sites that are owned by the same company, MindGeek. Go and have a walk through. Don't even take it from me. Really, have a walk through and then email me, gaildines.com, and you tell me, okay? And in fact, what we could do is put it up there on my group, Culture Reframed, to show you that this is not us exaggerating. This is him lying and us telling the truth.
Okay, we're going to take one more
Just
question
the
from the
opposite,
audience. Hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm British, and I have I prepared it. Now I've kind of forgotten it. No, I remember. So in the UK in 2013, David Cameron, who's the Prime Minister, he banned pornography. So Gail's shaking her head, still talking. You can speak afterwards. So David Cameron, he banned porn. So, you know, for your internet provider, if you tried to access like Brazzers or Pornhub, it says your ISP has blocked this. So, you know, it was celebrated and also vilified in one sense, like taking away people's liberty, also in a sense of, you know, they're like legal pornography, as like Nadine's point, it doesn't take away people's rights, you know, you can watch it responsibly. My point to being is, when you prohibit something, it doesn't stop people going to see it. So I kind of want to get the view on, you know, Gail's side and also Nadine's side, like, how do you view that? Sorry, Gail, I didn't mean to be rude there. I just wanted to get my question out.
You weren't rude. He didn't ban it. It was the opt-in, opt-out. It's very different. What's gone on in England, and it's voluntary. There's no law. It's voluntary. And what he said is to the internet provider services, you have to voluntarily, or he said he was going to do a law, where when you buy now in the United States a cell phone or whatever, you have porn, okay? In England now, it's opting in. So if you want porn, you pick up the phone, you have to be 18 and above, you have to own the credit card, and all you have to say is very simple, I want porn. That's not the definition of banning, okay? Banning is you can't have access to it and the government closes it down. Opt-in, opt-out is not banning. It's completely different. So it's just changing the de facto that you can't get access to porn until you pick up the phone and say, I want porn.
It would violate the First Amendment in this country, though, because it's stigmatizing a particular kind of speech and putting a burden. How many of you would want to say,
oh, God, picking up the phone to say, I want porn, that's terrible.
The important point, you're asking, what is the effect? And I think this is a matter of common sense, but it's also documented in many studies, not only about pornography, but any banned, attemptedly banned expression takes on the forbidden fruits allure and becomes even more intriguing. Think about art that censors try to ban. Those art exhibits get, you know, record-breaking attendance that they would never have had if there wasn't an attempt to try to censor them. So we're never going to get rid of it. Humanity has always been concerned about sexuality and images of sexuality. The question is, how can we make sure that I'm most concerned about those who are participating in the industry, the real people, that they really are given a panoply of choices so that if they decide to make their living this way, it is a truly voluntary choice once they change their minds, that they can easily get out of it. And that is not going to happen if we drive it underground. Then exploitation becomes even more rampant than it is today.
I think there's a perspective here that we need to be addressing, and the fact is that I don't think we're talking about how the porn industry targets young boys, and there doesn't seem to be any concern about the effects on young boys for watching this porn. And I think also one of the things one of the things that we're not seeing here is that you say, oh, we're never going to get rid of the porn industry, it's here to stay. I absolutely disagree. I know a whole movement of young men who understand the harms of pornography, not just from the perspective of violence against women, although that's becoming an increasing conversation among young men, but I also know that there are a lot of young men who understand the physiological and anatomical effects on young men, such as erectile dysfunction, such as addiction, which is documented.
No,
and
so
this idea that we're
false.
just not going to ever get rid of the porn industry is false. Just like this idea that when we say, oh, there's, these drill sergeants are doing this and this in boot camp, so we don't say get rid of the military. Actually, there's a whole organization that's geared towards getting rid of the military, Veterans for Peace. So there's a whole movement of young men who say that we're not only addressing violence in society, violence in our culture, violence overseas. We're addressing violence in the media that we see, and young men are recognizing this, and you are absolutely out of touch with how young men are seeing their sexuality today. If you wanted to know, you could ask us and we would tell you.
Yeah, I've only worked in the industry for 30 years. This man who has no contact with it,
Well, that's why we're shilling the industry. That's
he's
the
got
you're a
the
shill.
skinning
You're
on it
nothing
all.
else but a
Guys, I'm
shill.
so-
You've been facilitating violent porn for
This is
30
just
years. That's
crap.
what you just revealed. That you've been facilitating violence for 30 years.
That's a lie.
I'm not going to mince
How
words
dare
with
you accuse me of that, sir? Most porn is not violent.
She just
Most
sat here
porn
and
is
told you exactly what happened in the porn
Okay,
industry,
well, sorry,
and
guys,
you
most
denied it
Actresses
the
know
entire
exactly
time.
what they're getting into, and they
Most.
have
You just said most.
Okay.
Most of them.
All right, we're
going
going
to
to take
Yeah,
one
because no industry
last
is
question. One last question. Over here, Suzanne.
I would like to know how we can see Hot Girls Wanted.
This is a nice segue.
So, wait. Good question. Okay, I just want to say before we reveal that, that we actually, this panel happened because after the film premiered at Sundance, there was a heated debate on social media, Twitter and all of that, and it sounded a lot like this, except that people were sort of hiding behind social media, and here we are, and it's amazing. And we made this movie not because we're anti-porn and not because we're pro-porn. We made this movie to have this conversation.
Yes, and I really have to thank all of you for being as passionate as you are and agreeing to be here today and to have a civil discourse, because to me this is the reason to make films, and this is also a conversation that needs to stay alive. And you're right. Ask the questions. Talk to the people who are involved. Talk to the people who are involved in the business. Talk to the people who are the consumers. And I want to thank you guys for being a part of this.
Where can we see the movie?
And most importantly, I want to encourage you to see on Netflix this Friday, Hot Girls Wanted, streaming Friday the 29th. Worldwide. Thank you so much for being here today. I really mean it. I appreciate it.